Okay. Okay guys, so we're in like the next month. We're doing things in the studio. It's a little busy right now for me. I got multiple toy projects going on, commissions, a bunch of that stuff. You just adjust. There we go. Yeah, so a ton of stuff going on. Working on a bunch of new toys. Just released a 3D model of this toy right here for the new Procreate update, so you can actually draw on it before you get one and plan your design, which I think is kind of cool. Still in the works though, working on that. Overall studio is looking a lot better. Sorry, that was probably nauseating to watch. Mice has his section over here, looks great. My section over here, it's getting there. Just built this new film rig. Gonna do some more videos with it. Kind of excited about it. But I figure I'd kind of give you a little update because it's been a little while since I've filmed anything. So, still working on this guy here, Planche. So, working on that. Haven't come up with a name for this. Game Over Gary was the name I was using as kind of as a joke, but that might stay. And just working on some tattoo flash. I'm not sure if I showed that in the last video, but painted these guys. Gonna paint some more flash this week. And finish up some commissions, which I'm doing for a Twitch streamer. So she's a DJ and wanted me to do some tattoo flash styled sticker designs, and I said, sure, I can do that. So those will be done. Probably show some of that stuff soon once she releases them and whatnot. But yeah, this is kind of it. Just getting ready. There's a ToyCon show coming up that me and Mice are going to be going to, so that's what these toys are hopefully be done in time for. So that's in December. So a couple weeks left before that, and that's about it so far. But I'm going to film some of the process here, packing some orders. Got some of those sent out. And what else do I got going on? Oh, doing some more like toy unboxing / review videos. Bringing back Designer Toy Thursdays. I got a big one right here that took me a long time to get. Took about 2 years to get that thing from a pre-order, and I ended up having it sent to my wrong address. So my old address had to like deal with my old landlord. Kind of annoying, but now I have it here, and I'm going to be filming a Designer Toy Talk Thursday with that. It's very exciting, so go check those out if you're into that kind of thing. If not, back to art. Alright, so here I'm actually sculpting the planchette toy that you guys have probably seen me working on Instagram, and also working on the little arcade game. But this is when I was actually just trying to sculpt everything by hand. The planchette toy ended up being more complicated and I needed to get it done before an event, so I ended up 3D printing it, and you'll see that process coming up in a little bit. I'm going to show you guys the 3D prints. This was just me working on and filling it. This was all sculpted by hand here, but I ended up doing 3D printing because of a deadline. But we will be going over the more technical process of sculpting by hand. Okay guys, so it's been a little while since I've been back in the studio. It's been super busy and kind of messy in here, but I got a bunch of things I'm excited to show you. So, working on some flash, doing some experiments, gonna mount this and varnish it to some hardboard right here. And I have some 3D prints I wanna show you. So, this is the prototype right here. Pretty sweet, but yeah, this is the prototype I'm working on for a new toy called Planche. So it's got two faces. This is the 3D print. It's a pretty successful print. I'm pretty happy with it. So working on this, I gotta clean it up, prime it, fill in some little pits and holes from the 3D printing process. You know, normal stuff. I wanted to update, got the new filming rig in the studio as well for top-down shots. And it's just a little messy, so we're just cleaning today and organizing, but I figured I'd update and whatnot. But I'll show you some shots of the stuff I'm working on as I'm working on it. Alright, so here I'm actually just cutting out some hardboard. I'm measuring it for some tattoo flash that I painted. And basically what it is you cut out this hardboard and you glue the tattoo flash to the hardboard, and then you can actually resin over it. That's how you get those really classic kind of retro styled, not retro, but you know what I mean, like old school shiny tattoo flash. That's how they would do it. They'd mount it to a board and then they'd varnish it with boat resin or boat varnish and basically make them bomb proof. This one didn't end up being a success, but we'll probably do that next video. Right now, I'm actually grabbing all the 3D printed parts here, and we're going to prepare them for mold making. So all the parts have a bunch of little imperfections from the 3D print process that need to be sanded, removed. Just like everything else, it's the sand and fill process. So these are a bunch of sanding sticks. I'm sorting out different grits and just working with the most aggressive, working my way up to the finest grit, making it nice and easy. So those are some of the marks left from the 3D printer where all the supports are. And to sand those off, fill any pits and holes, and prepare them all for mold making. This takes a super long time, but however you like to sand, prepare, do whatever works best for you. On this actual part, I ended up having a section that was a little too low in my 3D model. So I tried to fix the problem here. I'm using a level to level out the toy because it's wedge shaped, and I'm going to level it in every direction. So I want to make sure that it's level in every direction when I'm doing this. And I'm going to get a syringe, fill it with some resin that sets quickly, and I'm going to try to fill in the mouth. Gonna let you know it didn't work out super well, but that's a part of toy making. It's trial and error, and sometimes you have to fix a problem. All right, I'm just mixing the resin here. This is a 1-to-1 ratio, just a simple resin to fill in a little hole or pit. I use this method all the time on stuff. It does work, but this one just didn't work out. The resin was setting too quickly, and the crevice was too small. It looks a lot larger here, obviously, because we're zoomed in. But it's super tiny, so I have to use this blunted syringe to get it in there. And I got most of it in there and got it to work out. But I ended up actually scrapping this piece completely because the mouth got messed up, and had to 3D print another one, which did come out really nice. But you can kind of see the resin in there. And I'm continuing to sand and get it ready for all the printing and everything else. Like all the, not printing, but the casting. And it is so much work to do, but I really appreciate you guys sticking around watching this process. So once you have the parts cleaned off and dried, it's time to start priming and filling in more areas a little bit more aggressively than you'll get with like the spot putty or the glazing Bondo. I have all the products listed below in the description. If you have any questions about any of them, always feel free to ask. I always answer all my comments and questions on here. But I'm lightly coating everything with the fill primer that I use all the time. This is actually another brand I really like. I don't think I've mentioned before. This is the Sems brand. It's more of an automotive grade. A little bit higher quality. It's really nice. It's just very easy to work with, so it's another option. This is the second round of 3D printing. Fully 3D printed the character again and just went through the process of getting it finished and ready to go. And it's just the same process back and forth, sanding off all the little nubs, filling in areas. It takes a lot to get prototypes perfect, and this is definitely one that took me a very long time. I'm here just sanding it. This is like a little thing I set up with a sanding disc. There's a foam pad and just a drill. We ended up getting an actual small like side drill kind of grinder thing and like micro table saw that I'll probably show I think later in the video. If not, we'll talk about it another time. It's a cool tool, but it's super dangerous. This is a little bit safer to have at the desk. So I'm just sanding everything, and this also polishes the parts. So if you're looking for a specific finish, if you don't want to prime it and you want to go straight to silicone, you could do that. But these require way too much filling, and I'm actually just boring out holes here. This was after priming, so this is more like the wet sanding and filling. And now we're actually moving on to making the mold box. And I feel like I've talked about this before, that I use styrene plastic for everything. And making mold boxes is one of the best things you can use it for. I usually use super glue, but you can use hot glue. I just prefer working with super glue. It's fast. So these are all scrap pieces. And I work on a few different methods. We tried a few things here because I wasn't sure the best way to go about this. I didn't want to spend a lot of time and a lot of resources on making this mold because it's pretty big. So it'd require a lot of silicone. And we've already gone through a couple iterations of this toy and used a lot of silicone to get it there and to where it is. So here I'm trying a different method. This is a wax method, and it just didn't work out for this toy. Mice has an electric waxing tool over here, and I'm using it to create sprues and everything else, but I kept snapping them off, and I just decided it was time to get rid of it. It is a cool method, but we'll go over it again in future projects for toys that are a little bit better. That's the tool right there. You basically just heat it up, and it welds the wax to the surface, and it creates a bond. but the part was too heavy and it would have used even more silicone with this method. So I decided against it after knocking it down a bunch, but you know, it's trial and error, man. Always trial and error. So I ended up scrapping this in a little bit when I realized it's just not going to work. And it was very frustrating, but sometimes that's what you got to do. I'm back to the styrene over here. I'm just gluing these little nuts on here to create registration keys. And then I put the toy in there, and it's held down with some wax around it to keep it suctioned to the plate. And we just get into the process of building the walls. So I'm cutting the styrene sheets here. Super quick and easy. You just cut them, snap them, and glue them in place. So I'll use glue and a zip kicker, and that instantly cures the super glue. I think we've talked about that before in past videos, but if you're new here, it's an accelerant for the super glue. It basically just cures it instantaneous. It's a little dangerous if you're not careful if you get on your hands. Okay, so I've gone ahead and made these little kind of crappy looking mold boxes with scrap pieces of styrene plastic. So now I gotta make the silicone. You guys have seen me do this before, probably in other videos. Using a 2-part silicone, we're using, I can't remember which one. I'm gonna go check. Give me 1 second, I'll be right back. All right, I'm gonna be using Mold Max 10. It's a 2-part silicone. It's not 1-to-1. It's a 1-to-10 ratio, I believe, or 1-to-100. I'll check the packaging, obviously, when I go to mix it, but it's a 24-hour sitting silicone, so it's gonna take 24 hours for this thing to cure. I'm gonna put this thing in silicone here. After I vacuum degas it, you'll see all those steps. If you have been on the channel before and watched me cast things, you've seen that process before. Got this little arm here, and then I also have a foot. So I'm gonna probably cast those out of maybe a different silicone if we have any left that's a little bit faster. And the main reason for that is I want to be able to cast a ton of these parts quickly. These are going to take a little bit longer. The bodies are going to take much longer, and I'm only making 1 mold at the moment for these parts right here. The main reason is because the 3D printed parts, there's a few little blemishes here and there I'm seeing on some of them. My part's actually drying over there. This is the one with all the blemishes. There's little flat sides and little misprinted details in here that would be a pain to kind of sand out when it's this small. And I don't really have time to reprint, so we're gonna go with the one that I already worked on and fixed up. Make a singular mold, same thing with a foot, and we'll get those going. And then we also have this mold here. So this one is a little bit more complicated. I'm thinking I'm probably gonna actually make a super tight mold box for this one and just glue the base down. This will probably be a rotocasted mold as well. It's just a lot to have as a giant block of silicone. It's just like super hefty, and this would probably weigh like a pound. But yeah, it's not too bad. Let me get going on that, and I'll show you what's up. Okay, so after degassing the silicone, I ended up actually pouring the first half. This is me making the new mold walls to make the second half. After coating it with mold release and everything else, I decided to actually do a glove mold. So I used some pins on the backside there and stuck it down and glued all the walls up, adding more mold release and brushing it down, letting it sit. And I'm using a little bit of baby powder in here just to get around the entire thing, just to help it release a lot better on the sides. And the reason I like doing this is because the way that I planned to do the mold originally was rotocasting, but I wasn't sure how it was going to work with this design. I mix up the next batch of silicone here, and then we're just going to pour it in. So we just pour it into the mold, fills up, and I'm adding little chunks in here to take up space. If you don't have enough silicone, this is a great trick to cut up old molds. and then I pull it out and we actually show you what the part looks like. This is one of the drawbacks of using the styrene plastic with the super glue. It's super hard to break the molds open, but keeps them really secure and they're watertight. So I pull this out and you can see here I'm just adding some baby powder all over the mold. There's still some areas that had some cure inhibition, but we were hoping the entire mold wasn't messed up, and luckily it wasn't. So I was able to pull this thing open. You can see like that's a section that didn't bond. I had the mold release on there, which is great. And I just pull off all the extra flashing there, and I'm using a scalpel to remove it easier. But did really well. I'm really happy with how it came out. And pop the part out right there, and you can see it. Came out great. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually cutting a piece of brass rod that I'm going to sharpen with a Dremel to make a tool to make holes inside the silicone mold. So if you don't cut vent holes or pour in holes when you first make your mold because you're unsure of how you want to proceed, this is a good way to actually cut the holes in there afterwards. So I'm just sharpening the tip here with a grind off bit with a little hand Dremel, and I'm using brass tubing. It's what I have. You can use whatever you want, but I think the brass tubing is probably the easiest to just grind down quickly. This really only took me like a couple minutes, and I'm just grinding down on the inside and making essentially a blade that will allow me to push right through the silicone pretty easily. So you're gonna see that in a minute, but this is just me sharpening it and getting it ready to go. Almost. Come on. Hey, look at that. Cut it out perfectly. Okay, so I just cut through the silicone mold using a sharpened brass tube. Because I wasn't sure whether I was going to do the injection mold, and I figured I'll do it where the foot is because it's easier to hide, and I can grind in there a bunch and it's not going to damage the outside of the toy. And I want a little bit of venting on one of the sides here. So I'm going to just cut a hole, very slight hole, nothing crazy. It's a little one. Pull it out and snip it with some scissors, and that will leave a little burr for air to escape to if it gets stuck. It'll be easy to sand where it's located. So. Okay, cut deep enough. Grab it. Pinch on with some pliers, just like so. Okay, so I got a hold of it, pull on it, I'm just grabbing my scalpel and I'm just cutting this part off, nothing else. Oh. You can see that. It's hard to see probably because I'm got the camera in the rig, but I cut this little plug out. So there will be a little section that the air bubbles, as they're rising up, they can get into if there's an issue. And now I gotta match this hole into the master mold. So I gotta put this on like that. Get everything lined up and fitted. Tucked in. Looks great. And now I just do peel this back a little bit so I can see inside. Keeping the bottom in place the best I can. Alright, line this up. We're gonna just punch this one through instead. Okay, you can see where the hole is. Just a little bit more force. Get it through. That's the plug right there. So now we see where the hole is. I can make it a little bit bigger if I need to. So this side, twist it. Just keep going until you can cut through. My hammer is MIA, I don't know where it is, so that's why we're doing it like this. scraps. And then on the outside here, I'm gonna cut a little well. So a lot more resin in. Not much, but a decent amount more. And should allow it to fill up. Huh? Your consultation?
Eh?
What, consultation?
No, he's too busy. I need to go to grab the paper.
Okay. Alright, see you in a bit, buddy.
The consultation is at 4.
Okay. Okay, so we got the mold now. We have this little brass tube and rod. And if I wanted, I could actually feed this into the mold like this. And I could actually fill this with resin like this and then pull this part out. But I don't know how well it's gonna work. So we're gonna just do it the old-fashioned way. Make sure everything's lined up correctly. Okay, that looks pretty good. We're gonna use some cardboard to keep the mold together, and then I'll fill it with some resin. Okay, so I just mixed up some resin. Mixed up more than I'm gonna need for this mold, a little bit more. And I have extra molds next to me to fill it in. And I always have like a dump mold near me, like this, that's flat. So all the excess can go in there easily if it needs to. This stuff sets up really quick. So I need to do my best here, take my time. That happens sometimes too. Okay, this is gonna be a bad pour, it looks like. That's fine, it happens. Stop that. I'm out of syringes, normally I'd use a syringe and injection mold this, but okay, so these look like they have cured enough. We're going to open them up. And this definitely is a resin that sets too quickly. It sets really quickly, so we're gonna pull these out. And it looks like the feet are okay. All the bubbles rose to the surface on here, which is actually great. This part's gonna be hidden and you won't see it, so these are still usable, so they go in the bin over here. The hand, last time I had some issues with it, yeah, it just didn't fill all the way. Got stuck. So both of these need injection style pouring. So we are going to figure that out. I think we're gonna use a bottle I have here and see if I can get it to work, and use a much slower setting resin than this one, because this sets too quickly. Reset this up. You're about to cast some pressure, right, buddy? All right.
But whatever it is, have to be quickly and fast. I cannot make it.
Okay.
So you have to make it. Because if not, they get solid.
Alrighty. Alright. So, this overall did pretty well. There are no bubbles in it, which is amazing. What ended up happening is this started kicking off and curing before I had a chance to actually fill the crevice, which sucks, but that can happen. So I'm gonna mix this batch up a little differently this time. But yeah, no bubbles. That's awesome. So that's a huge plus. You can see that it completely cured inside. I'm gonna save these chunks for future projects. I'll just toss them in as filler. If you're gonna rotocast, these are good to save. Okay, so I just poured some junk resin that we have. It's about to expire. It's like a little like milky white. That's usually when you know it's about to be done. I got just enough to fill this. I had this little squeeze bottle that I normally use for super glue. I filled it with all the resin and just kept filling it up and squirting it into the mold. Not the most efficient way, but we'll see how it looks. It's probably gonna have a lot of bubbles because it's not under pressure, and I will let you know in probably about 35 minutes. So, see you then. I'm gonna actually move on to the next task I have to do, which is actually assembling these cards that I have for the cons tomorrow. So we're gonna try to get all this stuff done before then, and I gotta do some inventory, and that's about it. So to make these scratch off cards, I'm using rubber cement. Rubber cement is a type of adhesive that you basically glue onto a surface, and you can either create a permanent or semi-permanent bonds depending on if both surfaces are glued or not. If both surfaces are glued, it's a permanent bond. I'm also adding these little colored stickers here of these scratch off stickers, and then using one of the face templated pieces with a ballpoint pen to help line them up in the future. I'm then sticking on gold washi tape for the eyes and the nose, and they don't line up, so I have to cut out individual pieces and stick them in those spots and just glue them together. I had these for the event, and if you stop by the table or bought something, you get these little cards here, and everyone you scratch off has a different color, and they reveal a prize. I have 2 free planch toys when the planch toy drops that are available. You can get one of these cards now if you want one by ordering on the website, and I'll throw one in the order. There's a limited run of them, and it's kind of a cool piece. I'll probably go more in depth on how I made these in the future for other projects.
Well, I need to go for the other part.
So what?
I need to go again to the...
Damn, dude, came out pretty good. Looking some bubbles there, but
Pretty nice.
look at that. I actually really like this like pastel yellow. I know what I'm doing.
You get one weakness card
Okay.
that he forget and other. So the weakness card and one we got a face that he forget about.
You want popping? You're good. You walking there?
I will.
Okay, so all in all, I'm really happy with how this came out. This is cast with no pressure at all. Just pop it out of here real quick. And I just want to see how well the design worked for as far as the mold design goes. Looks pretty good. We're still a little green, so it's a little soft, so it's a little more pliable. So the side here where I put the little bump to catch the bubbles worked really well. I knew there was going to be an issue on this side. Here we got a big bubble right here, and that's something that would have been avoided with the pressure if I had done another side bubble here, I think, in the mold. But the holes are there, all the details are in the face, there's no bubbles on the main surface area. It looks great. I'm very happy with how this turned out. So I'm going to trim this up real quick, and we'll get moving on to the next thing.
So I ended up getting COVID and didn't have a chance to film anymore for this video, but just wanted to show you some stuff that I ended up making. We had these pins that just came out, some more prototypes that I worked on the toy to finalize it. Got to where I wanted to be. The event itself was super fun. I got to meet some of you guys, which was awesome, and I really appreciate you guys coming up and saying hi, introducing yourself. It was a super fun event, but I am now currently sick, so that's going to do it for this video. Here are some other stills of some things that I made, but want to give a big shout out to all my Patreons for helping support me and allowing me to kind of get more material and stuff to keep making these videos. If you want to check out any of that stuff, you can see all the links below. Other than that, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Wolf Pits out. Peace.